stories. I'm standing in the main committee room in Parliament House where hundreds of journalists have been locked away for hours now poring over the budget papers. Some of them have joined me today to speak about their thoughts on the budget. We have Ross Gittins from the Sydney Morning Herald and Shane Wright from the West Australian. Thanks for joining us. Now, the Treasurer describes this as a fair go budget. Ross, to you firstly, how would you describe this one?
I think it's a fair go for people who are in the right demographic. If you're a family, the budget's got some nice things in it. If you're really, really down and on the dole, they've got an absolute pittance. But at least it's not nothing like it.
And Shane, how would you describe it?
Oh, I'm a bit harsher than Ross. I think it's budgeting on the fringe. It's Harry Houdini would be applauding at some of the manoeuvres that Wayne Swan's got up to try and give himself a surplus and be everything to everyone except maybe Twiggy Forrest and Clive Palmer. Now,
when you say Harry Houdini, what kind of things are you referring to?
Well, for instance, there's $1.1 billion worth of local government grants that were supposed to be spent in 12-13 that are miraculously going to be spent in the next 6 weeks. That boosts your budget bottom line. He's moving capital spending around that seems to disappear in 1 year, which just happens to be next financial year, and then magically reappears. That's why Harry Houdini, he'd be very happy with what Swanee's got up to.
It's certainly true that the budget involves moving money around, moving it forward, so that it's not in the budget year, moving it closer to us so that it's in the old year. There's a lot of that stuff goes on. There really has to be, to explain how by $45 billion in 1 year, there has to be a fair bit of shifting of the budgetary furniture, and there's a fair bit of it in there.
Looking at one of the specific things that they've done is the scrapping of the company tax cut to put that instead to families and to that package they've come up with. Do you think they're hard to sell that to business because they've done
I think it'll be very hard, but business will be terribly ungrateful. Business has done nothing to fight for their cut in company tax. They thought it was the government's duty to deliver it to them on the plate. They didn't bother to protect the government from the mining companies who were trying to do deals which in fact eroded the percentage point cut to 1.
You can see already how Mr Swan's trying to blame Tony Abbott, because it was when the Liberal opposition, led by the West Australian, said no, anything touched by the revenue of the mining tax is the poison apple, we can't have it. That just happened to be the company tax cut. And so Mr Swan went, stuff you all, I'll give it to money who might actually care. I might get a bounce off the 27 percentage points of people who support the Labor Party. So it's all about politics and also a bit of retribution to people who have taken to their own megaphones and absolutely hammered the government in the expectation, as Ross says, of getting money for nothing.
Do you think, though, families and people who are receiving this, that the government's using it as a way to counter the fear about the impact of the carbon tax?
Oh, certainly, yes. It also helps them by bringing it forward into the old financial year. It also helps them get back to surplus. But certainly the politics of it stands out a mile, and that is to get some cash into the hands of ordinary families at a time when they will be paying much higher electricity and gas prices because of the carbon tax.
But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the politics are. It's what if the politics work. And if they get a payoff, John Howard found this back in 2001, if you give money away and people take to it, you'll get it, there is an actual dividend. So for Wayne Swan, Julie Gillard, it does not matter. The businesses of this country don't vote, but the people who get this cash will.
So enough in this budget, do you think, to revive the government's fortune? They will get a bounce out of it?
I doubt that very much. I mean, it seems that the people who work in this building always think that budgets are about providing unpopular governments with bounces. I've seen a lot of budgets. I haven't seen any budgets that gave any government a bounce.
Yeah, and this government, anything they touch absolutely turns to something black and icky.
Shane Wright, Ross Gittins, thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks, Julie.
Now let's get more